Welcome to the Tesla Economist. Please hit the thumbs up and remember to subscribe. You can also follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon. It is too early to be doing any accurate delivery estimates for Q4, but there are a few elements that I really wanted to go over now, as I have a feeling Q4 will surprise people. No, not surprise, shock. I'm going to follow the numbers here, and I'll tell you exactly how I arrive at every number so you can use your own discretion as much as you deem appropriate. Now, I have a feeling these numbers are going to get out of control, and I'm not sure anyone is willing to put themselves on a line like this, but it's just too crazy not to at least mention. Despite Q3 being another record quarter for deliveries, up about 20% from the previous, obviously an insane jump, well, Q4 could be an even bigger jump again, if I'm right. Okay, so let's review the Q3 numbers. I have an estimated breakdown of each model from each factory. Now, we are taking production numbers from Q3, not delivery, as we first need to work out an estimate for what Q3 production numbers were, and then adjust accordingly for deliveries. I think this is going to be exciting, so I would advise you to keep watching. At the end, we'll also talk about the effect it could have on the stock. Here you can see how I've broken down the Q3 production of each model from each factory. We'll use this as our base and work from there. Now, it's not going to be overly surprising that we're going to be adding production numbers to each model, so we need to estimate what increase we would expect for each model over the quarter. The Model S Plaid started deliveries on June the 10th, a third the way through the last month of the quarter, yet Tesla were able to produce 2,340 for that quarter, although we don't know when they actually started production, as it would have obviously had to have been prior to these deliveries. Then in Q3, Tesla ramped up production more and were at 8,941 Model S's produced. I think that Model S's full capacity is at least 15,000. This is about the run rate the Model S was before the Model 3 entered the market. This run rate dropped after the Model 3 ramped up, likely as a result of some cannibalization. Elon has said with the Model S and X refresh, Tesla will double the lines, or shifts. At that time, the Model S was about 7,500 a quarter, so doubling would take us back to the 15,000 units a quarter. There is a chance Elon actually means we could double the 15,000 and thus take the S to 30,000. But that might be over the top. Although, think of the production advances since 2018 when they were at that rate last. To be honest, I think the S capacity is probably around 20,000, but I don't think we'll reach that in Q4 though. But 15,000 I think is possible. But just to be a little cautious, let's lock in 12,500. This gives us an additional 3,225 Model S's produced in Q3 over Q4. But hey, it's not impossible the production number is closer to 20,000. We've just seen deliveries for the Model X start. There was no Model X Plaid event or anything, but we are seeing customers take delivery, and wow, the interiors are outstanding. Tesla are only offering the 6-seater Plaid for now, which is obviously the most expensive, highest margin version. But if Tesla managed to ramp up the X as fast as the S, then the S has had an extra month of ramping in Q3 than the X will have in Q4. I think to get a rough idea, we can simply subtract that extra month from the Model S's Tesla produced in Q3. In other words, Tesla's Model S Q3 production units minus the Q2 production should give us a rough estimate of the number of X's we might expect this quarter, which would bring us to a total of 6,601 Model X's for Q4. This gives us a total of an additional 9,826 Model S's and X's for the quarter. Moving on to Model 3. Now, something happened at Fremont in Q3 that resulted in a 10% reduction in production. My best guess is that the Model 3 production line was down for a month or so, as Tesla moved over to the new battery packs. Tesla moves the standard range model from nickel-based batteries to iron-based batteries. I mean, this sounds like a reasonably big job to me, so it's not surprising at all. I had Model 3 at 39,000 units for Q3, but in Q2 it was closer to 49,000. After some rounding errors, I'm going to add an additional 9,500 units for Model 3. Of course, if the production line is down that long, then Tesla might have made some other alterations to it also and improved efficiencies. Model Y in Fremont has been slowly ramping up each quarter still, but this quarter Tesla have extra 2170 batteries, as they're no longer being used in the standard range Model 3 anymore. There is plenty of Y capacity left at Fremont too. It is possible that this could jump 10 to 20,000 for the quarter due to this. But I'm just going to lock in an additional 2,000 units, as I want to use solid estimates, not speculative numbers, but I like discussing the speculative possibilities as I go through it too. Maybe I hold Tesla on too high a pedestal and seem to think they're capable of just about anything. It's not my fault. They've blown my mind so much. Model 3 Shanghai, well, there isn't too much happening there. It's all hands on deck with the Model Y ramp. So I'm going to add 0 in there. Anything else would be speculative, and I don't even have any events to even base said speculation on. Right, yes, this insane Model Y ramp. We're hearing a ridiculous 1,600 vehicles a day. Now, with 92 days in Q4, that would mean 147,000 Model Ys produced for the quarter. Now, there is obviously some downtime to factor in too. Right, so what do we do here? I don't like just making up numbers. I like to base calculations on some deductive reasoning as much as possible. Well, if the Model 3 was at 800 units a day in Q3, that would have come to a total of 73,600. Yet Shanghai only produced around 66,000. That is exactly 10% below the capacity. So if we use the same metric in our Model Y production, 10% less than 147,000 is 132,000. 132,000. Is it really possible that Tesla could produce that many Model Ys this quarter in Shanghai alone? Well, aren't these the numbers we're supposed to use? Well, this is what we think might happen, right? And the numbers we saw from China in September do reflect this. That is an increase of 64,000 high profit margin Model Ys for the quarter. But wait, there's more. That's right, we haven't finished there. Now, we have 2 very big factories opening up next month, starting production. In fact, they have been prepping for production for months now, and have lots of parts ready to go. As a result, these production lines are chomping at the bit to get going. Once they get the green light, we're bound to see record ramping like no other auto manufacturer has ever witnessed before. Therefore, I'm going to assign 10,000 units produced from each of these new factories for the quarter, which brings us to a total of 105,000 additional vehicles for the quarter, which is a total of 343,000 units produced for Q4, an increase of 44% over Q3. Okay, and as for deliveries, perhaps some of these will be added to the inventory for the quarter, so we can reduce that number to 340,000 for deliveries. Anyway, this takes Tesla to an annualized run rate of 1.37 million. I mean, if Tesla did no ramping up at all next year, then shouldn't they at least hit that number? Yet we have estimates for next year of around 1.35 million. The existing factories are going to ramp up a bit next year still, but obviously the 2 new ones should add at least 500,000 units. My current estimates for next year are between 1.9 and 2 million. You know, assuming no component shortages. But Tesla could blow our minds with the level they are ramping up Texas and Berlin, so anything is possible north of those numbers too. But this is the most accurate I can infer given the information we have. I honestly don't know why some people give such low estimates. Is it cool to be that conservative? It likely won't help you with your conviction. Sometimes we do need to be overly positive just to give us that extra courage to press that buy button for more Tesla shares. Even if we fall short a little, well, Tesla will make up for it in the long run. Okay, but what about the rest of 2021? Where does that take us for the total for the year? We're currently sitting at 627,000 deliveries for the year. If you add an additional 340,000, then that's 967,000 for the year, which is huge, nearly a 100% increase from 2020. And with my estimates for next year, then it's likely to see another 100% increase. Now, when you're dealing with exponentials and you get 2 years of 100% growth, well, that changes growth to levels you wouldn't believe, especially when we compare it to our 50% growth target. And to then grow 50 to 70% a year from there, the numbers get big, really big, and quickly. When we get our October sales numbers from the CPCA for China, we will then be able to better validate these possibilities. There you go. I thought that was an interesting possibility. I showed you how I arrived at every number. You're welcome to come up with your own numbers, but you get the point. The potential this quarter is huge. FYI, I also ran these figures very loosely into some financials, and it came to about $3.1 billion GAAP earnings with a diluted EPS of $2.80, which would be a 50% jump in profit, quarter over quarter. Right, so how about that $1,000 stock price? When these deliveries and earnings are reported, we might hit escape velocity and enter a new cycle, perhaps trading around as high as $1,500, especially with these new factories operational. Is that crazy? $12 billion in earnings annualized, with a PE ratio of 125 isn't too outrageous, is it? But to be honest, even if deliveries were only 300,000 for Q4, that's really impressive enough. Anyway, another very exciting quarter to look forward to. Thanks for listening. Please hit the thumbs up and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon.